William's entire life has been a masterclass in managed emotion. His childhood, though privileged, was punctuated by very public unravelings. The strained marriage of his parents played out in global headlines, his mother's candid anguish, and then the cataclysmic, surreal grief of her death. At 15, he was forced to walk behind his mother's coffin. A moment of such acute, exposed sorrow, it sparked debates on child psychology for decades. The lesson was brutal but clear. Your deepest pain is not your own. It is a public spectacle, a national ritual. You grieve on behalf of others. This early wiring, that duty supersedes feeling, that service swallows self, created the foundation. His grandmother, the Queen, became his anchor and exemplar. In her, he saw the same ethos embodied with grace and wit. I have to be seen to be believed. She was the steady, unwavering constant, a repository of quiet understanding who had lived the same paradox. Her longevity offered him a prolonged, precious period of what might be called suspended inheritance. He could, to a degree, craft a hybrid life, a Royal Air Force search and rescue pilot, a hands-on father in the relative idol of Anne Hall, a campaigner for mental health who could speak about vulnerability while his own royal vault remained firmly locked. The heartbreaking moment, therefore, is the inevitable collapse of that suspended state. The Queen's passing was not just the loss of a beloved grandparent, it was the dismantling of William's last buffer. The monarch who had shouldered the ultimate responsibility for 70 years was gone. The mantle, heavy and inescapable, descended onto his father's shoulders, and by immediate proxy, onto his own. The man who had spent 2 decades building a careful, modern identity as William suddenly found that Prince of Wales was no longer a title, but a totality. The heartbreak lies in the quiet death of the plausible fiction that he could control the balance.
If duty provides the architecture of his heartbreak, his fractured relationship with Prince Harry is its agonizing, domestic echo. This is not about rivalry or slights. It is the shattering of a sacred pact. The 2 boys, huddled together in mutual incomprehension after their mother's death, were bound by a unique and terrible understanding. They were the only 2 people on Earth who knew exactly what it was to be them, to have lost Diana in that specific, blinding glare. William, the older, often assumed a protective role. Their shared trauma was a fortress. The subsequent breakdown, played out in documentaries, memoirs, and global media, is a heartbreak of existential dimensions. For William, Harry's departure and public revelations are not merely a family dispute. They are a repudiation of the very coping mechanism that William believes ensured their survival: silent duty, internal resolution, and the sanctity of the institution. Harry's path of public catharsis, in William's worldview, a dangerous betrayal that threatens the stability of the very structure that gives their lives meaning, and which, in his mind, their mother ultimately revered. Every headline, every interview from across the ocean is a reopening of the wound. It forces William to relive their shared trauma, but now alone. The brother who was his living link to their mother, his ally in absurdity, has become the narrator of a story William fundamentally rejects. The heartbreak is twofold: the loss of his brother in the present, and the desecration of the shared past that was their last sanctuary. He is left as the sole keeper of a flame, guarding a narrative he is forbidden to discuss, while the other witness testifies loudly to a different truth.
Perhaps the most poignant layer of William's heartbreak is found in his own children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. In their faces, he sees the untainted childhood he lost. In their boisterousness, he sees the freedom he never fully had. His devotion as a father is palpable, a clear, conscious effort to break cycles and provide the stability and normality he cherished in fragments. Yet, herein lies the cruelest twist. His very love for them accelerates his own heartbreak. Every time he shields them from a camera, every time he explains why they must attend a state ceremony, every time he sees George's small shoulders straightened with unconscious duty, he is forced to become the agent of the very system that constrained him. He must, by necessity, initiate them into the life of service that cost him so much. The father who wants to give them the world must also gently place the crown on their heads. The moment he realized the world's eyes were permanently on him as the future king was also the moment he realized those same eyes were now calculating the reign of his son. His heartbreak is the understanding that his greatest act of love, preparing them for their destiny, is also an act of inheritance of burden. He cannot save them from it. He can only try to make it more bearable, even as his own capacity to bear it is being stretched to its limit. The Stoic's dilemma, the heartbreak that strengthens the crown. This accumulating heartbreak does not weaken William. In the economy of monarchy, it paradoxically strengthens him. His pain is the fuel for his credibility. In a world obsessed with authenticity, his visible, costly stoicism is his authenticity. The public does not need to see him weep. They see the gravity, the faded boyishness replaced by a weathered resolve, and they understand the price. He becomes more king-like, not in spite of his heartbreak, but because of it.
The modernizing zeal of his younger years, talking openly about mental health while keeping his own counsel, championing homelessness while living in palaces, evolves. It becomes less about projecting accessibility and more about embodying a relatable yet regal fortitude. His heartbreak grants him a depth that protocol alone never could. He is no longer just a man born to rule, but a man sculpted by loss, tempered by betrayal, and anchored by duty. The boy who lost his mother becomes the man who must hold a fracturing family and a changing institution together, precisely because he knows what it feels like when things fall apart. Conclusion: the heartbreak as destiny. Prince William's heartbreaking moment is not a scene, it is the entire third act of his life so far, playing out in real time. It is the silent dinner conversation with his father, the king, where the weight of the crown sits as a third, unseen occupant. It is the pang of seeing his brother's face on a magazine cover, a smile that now feels like a stranger's. It is the bedtime story with Louis, where for a few precious minutes he is just Papa, before the thoughts of tomorrow's engagement intrude. His heartbreak is the final, full acceptance that William Wales, the person, must be fully integrated into, and ultimately subsumed by, the Prince of Wales, the institution. It is the sacrifice of the last remnants of a private self on the altar of public service. This is the tragic contract of monarchy. To be most loved and trusted, one must be seen to pay a visible human price. William's heartbreak is his down payment. It is the source of his strength, the root of his authority, and his deepest, most lonely wound. In carrying it without visible complaint, he is not denying the pain. He is performing the ultimate act of his destiny, proving that the heart can break, and yet the crown and the man who will wear it will not.
The image is seared into the public memory. Prince William, standing ramrod straight in the deep silence of St. Paul's Cathedral, his face a studied mask of solemnity. It was the 2022 service of Thanksgiving for his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. Beside him, his young son, Prince George, fidgeted slightly, a tiny human motion in a sea of monumental ritual. For a fleeting second, William's eyes, usually so guarded, flickered down to George. In that glance, a universe of emotions seemed to pass, a surge of protection, a pang of shared loss, and the crushing weight of a legacy now irrevocably shifting. The world saw a future king, composed and dutiful, but within that moment lay a profound and private heartbreak, not born of a single event, but of the relentless convergence of duty, personal grief, and the extinguishing of a final, ordinary sanctuary. To understand the heartbreaking moment William endures, a continuous, quiet crisis rather than a singular episode, one must abandon the tabloid search for tears. His heartbreak is not a crack in the facade, but the very pressure that fortifies it. It is the silent, lifelong negotiation between the man who yearns for normalcy and the institution that demands its surrender. This moment of heartbreak is the permanent transition from being a grandson, a son, and a father first, to being the heir, a living, breathing symbol whose personal humanity is his greatest burden and most carefully